Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Long Home of the Soul by J. Carl Denton. This is a book that came out in either 2016 or 2017. I'm unsure because on Goodreads it has two different dates. That's okay. It's a sci-fi. It is self-published. I received this book from the SBS of C4 where I'm a judge. This book was one of our team's quarterfinalists. At the end of this, I'm also going to talk briefly about the other two quarterfinalists because I'm not going to be doing a full review of those for reasons. Anyway, an intriguing sci-fi detective story with a tone reminiscent of Blade Runner, The Long Home of the Soul is a dark and gritty ride. What is it about? In the year 2095, when one of the most powerful men in the world is brutally murdered, Coleman Hawkins, a burned-out Atlanta Metropole detective struggling with PTSD, is tasked with finding the killer. His investigation leads him face-to-face with the endgame of global economic disparity and a secret too terrible to be believed, too horrible to be ignored. That is the most succinct and accurate jacket copy I have read in a long time, so thank you for that. It was short and sweet, just like me, right? No, I'm more like old coffee, like cold and bitter, just like everybody in this book. This is a detective story. I'll talk about what I really liked about it first. The action sequences in the novel are very well described and easy to follow, as well as being exciting and realistic. Like a lot of the book, it has very much a no-holds-barred approach to every aspect, which suits its gritty tone. Tied to that, there's a lot about this book that reminds me of Blade Runner, the atmosphere most of all, as it just feels grimy and shitty and kind of run down. You feel really situated in the novel and understand why everyone is so down all the time. Everybody is not having a good day. The world sucks. It's dystopian to the extreme with a fascist government in charge, crooked cops, poverty, homelessness on a massive scale. You can't eat fresh fruit and vegetables. It's just sheer misery. The awfulness of the time is apparent on every page, and we also get backstory into why the world is like this. It's very poignant to today, especially. Yeah. The story seems like it's kind of like a typical detective story for the first little bit, but the further you get into it, you realize that it's not sci-fi just because it's dystopian. There's something else going on that was, to use a word that I use a lot, absolutely wild. This gave the books a little something extra than just a police detective corruption story. I really liked that. I thought it was really, really cool. Obviously can't talk about it because it would ruin it for you, but I was just like, okay, cool, interesting. My favorite scene of the book was the train ride. I can't say much about it because obviously it would spoil it. It's a very short scene, but that part was added some much needed levity to the story, and I thought it was really, really good. I really liked it. Now, because this is for the competition, I have to talk about the things that I didn't super like about it. First, and this is something you'll be expecting if you follow my channel, it's quite the sausage fest. There are women, though they fall into archetypes common to the genre. We have the wife, the femme fatale, the stripper, the waitress. There is a woman police chief briefly, though she really only has one scene in the book and then she gets kicked out. There's the woman on the train ride too, of course, who is my idol. Now, I do wonder if this is sort of on purpose. I would expect in a fascist society such as this one that things would go far worse for women, forcing them into traditionalist roles or gatekeeping them from certain spaces. If this was the case, if this was kind of meant to be the point, it wasn't strong enough. So I felt a bit more like women were set dressing at times. And I was kind of like, I could have used a bit more ladies. There's no women in the background in the police force. All the police officers are men except for the police chief. All of the there's a dispatcher at one point, but none of the forensic team is women, things like that. And again, that might just be because it's a dystopia. I mean, I would find that extremely dystopian. So I'm not saying that this is a reason why I would give the book less stars, but to me, as someone who's interested in how women are portrayed in books, it is something that I wanted to just bring up. Anyway, also, there weren't a lot of characters in the book that I was rooting for. No one is really likable, as everyone is just so depressed. And the main character, while not unlikable, you do kind of root for him. He's a bit too much of an archetype as well. He's the alcoholic, traumatized, divorced cop who only has the case to live for. He doesn't really stand out among the throng of male noir-esque cops in the detective genre. But if that's something that you really like if that dude just totally turns your crank, then you will love this because he fits that mold perfectly. I also found the book was a little too long. It dragged in the last third for me, and there was a bit of a coincidence at one point that felt a bit too on the nose. I was kind of like, oh, of all the people in all the world, this person is the one who's involved. I'm like, okay. yet it was very enjoyable overall. The writing was really strong for the most part, and as I said, the atmosphere is top notch. If you love dystopian detective stories, if you love Blade Runner, you should totally give this a shot, because it is really, really good. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was definitely deserving to be a quarterfinalist. Okay, so I'm going to move into two little mini bitty reviews of the other two books that were quarterfinalists, mainly because I read them like a long time ago and I can't remember much about them, so I didn't think it'd be fair to do like a full in-depth review. But I did want to mention them because I did say I was going to try to do reviews of all of the books that we had to read in full. So sorry, but here we go. So there was Proliferation by Eric A. Otto. This one's also set in the future. Basically, the story is population centers have been leveled and society has regressed to a pre-industrialized state. An advanced city rises from the ashes, enabling the rebirth of more such cities, each one subtly different, the result of an experiment in finding the best machine-governed utopia. Sovereign forces mobilize to exploit their power and others to contain them. At the heart of the struggle is an unlikely pair, a dejected anthropologist whose life work has finally become useful, and a snarky pirate forced to serve a monastic cult. To survive, they must not only navigate escalating conflict, but also understand the broader implications of the rising machine cities for all of humanity. Very cool concept. For this one, I was a little torn. I really liked it overall, and I really loved the one character's storyline, the pirate, of course. But I couldn't get into the anthropologist story, which was surprising to me because I love anthropology. I just found the character, I wasn't like super drawn to him. I kind of found him a little bit annoying. So I wasn't as interested in like his plot line. So that kind of bogged down the rest of the story for me. It was one of those where I was like racing to get through his part so I could get back to the stuff that I really liked. Yet the novel has some really, really great detail and world building. It's really cool. I love the idea of like pre-industrial, but they still have like kind of remnants hanging around that they use. I love that as a sci-fi concept. The pacing is great, especially for a long book. The world's changed drastically, but it's an interesting approach. I thought it was really, really good too. And the second one was Vermilion Flames by Adam Hernandez. And this one is about, in the shadow of a ruined earth, the Republic and its church claim to offer safety and security while burning ideas and people alike. No moon or planet is free of flames and bloodshed, even as the rebel organization, the Vermilion Coalition, seeks to dismantle the Republic's oppressive regime. On a terraformed Mercury, Kea L. Varden hopes to find the truth behind her mother's murder, a difficult task when everyone insists it was a tragic accident. When Kea's adventurous spirit leads her to the forbidden Great Desert, she's sent to the Republic's capital on Mars to study under the watchful eye of the all-powerful church she despises. There she unravels mysteries about her mother's life and faces in a fall in line or risk everything to take up her mother's mantle. There's also a bit more, but it's long, about another guy who's the commander of the fleet, all this stuff. So for this one, I was really into it for like the first bit, and then really into it at the last kind of quarter, but in the middle I was kind of not as into it. such a great review here. The characters are very distinct and easily definable, and there is a great twist at the end. I did find, though, it felt a little bit YA for me at times, as there was the girl in school and there's some scrabbling amongst her classmates. She does eventually mature, and the male main character evens that out because he's not, a teenager. So I think that's more of a preference on my part. I'm not really into kind of, teenagers in school kind of stories. Even if it is an adult novel, I just like, that's not a plot line that I always am drawn to. I'm like, I'm done with high school. But the action scenes are great in this book. The world building is based on ancient Rome, albeit in space. That was really interesting. And I love a good rebellion story. It did go on a bit long for my liking, as I said, but overall, if you love space opera and stories of rebels trying to take down an empire, you will enjoy this, and you should totally check it out. It is definitely worth a read. So yeah, thank you. And there will be more SBSFC reads later after we get the semifinals assigned to us, and I start reading through those. So thanks.